What's up guys, this is Miasin. So again, like 2 days ago or something, I made a video on the best hand traps that you can play, and now for the best board breakers. And yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, let's get right into it. So the first one is, well, obviously smash the like and subscribe button. The first one's Lava Golem, which is a good card if you don't really need your normal summon. It's always a good option in Labyrinth and maybe Runic Stun. But I think Sphere Mode is maybe a little better if you really don't need your normal summon, so I can't. And still though, if you draw a double Lava Golem, then you contribute 4 monsters your opponent controls. It can be a time card. So yeah, there's a lot of positive things to say about Lava Golem. So both of them are really good, at least in those two decks, so Labyrinth and Runic Stun. Ultimate Slayer is not a card that I think is personally really good at the moment, just because there's so much ground that you gotta cover. Like, you can't target DS E-Ray, for example, with Ultimate Slayer. That card should, I mean, it shouldn't have been a thing after the ban list, but I guess Ubel is still pretty much, like, almost at full power, pretty much. But it's just a matter of time before this card will be getting better, because once we get crossover breakers in December, the new set with Raziel and, what's-his-face, Malice, Ultimate Slayer will be absolutely insane. This card is extremely good against both of those decks. You can bounce back the Terahertz by sending maybe the Trouble Sunny or even the Tri Brigade monster, and then it not only does the Terahertz go away, so you pretty much clear 2 interruptions, but also you can either +1 by sending Aurora, or you can get rid of another card with the Trouble Sunny. And also, even against Raziel, it's insane. You send Aggregator, you bounce back their Dreadnator, and then you negate their field spell. So you make them lose pretty much almost everything off of one card. It's honestly a remarkable card. Not to mention that it is not once per turn. Alright, Spellbound is a card that is good against like Purely and Flunderies, but it's overall not really a powerful card. It's a very weak card. It's just a worse version of Dimensional Bearer because it only affects the monsters that are currently on your opponent's field, but not the ones that are about to be summoned, so it's not like a super lingering effect. It's not a bad card, and it's a card that clearly has potential, but I don't think it's currently very good, and, you know, like, it's not really worth playing at the moment, but it's still a decent card with great potential. Change of Heart, I think, is a great side option, but it's not a card that you necessarily have to play. It depends on your approach. Change of Heart is like slightly better than Mind Control. There's not that much of a difference, but I want to say Change of Heart is still drastically better than Snatch Steal, just because a lot of people will have Cosmic Cyclone, and you want to be ready for Cosmic Cyclone, and Change of Heart at least can't get negated, quote-unquote, by that card. Soul Release is a good option if people want to play the Fire King build, but we don't necessarily know for certain that people will be playing Fire King Snake Eyes. They might be playing Kashtira Snake Eyes, and also Soul Release, not the best against Despia, because they might just Gimmick Puppet Nightmare lock you on like standby phase, so... And also it's not a quick effect, so that's my main issue with Soul Release. Obviously the card would have been unfair if it was a quick effect, but there is a card in here that is basically a quick effect version of Soul Release, and it's Dark World Puppetry. Maybe this card is a little better than Soul Release if your deck can play it, because you do have to discard a Fiend monster, not as a cost, so if it has an effect when it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, it will trigger, which is really cool. Obviously it's a Dark World card, so it has a synergy in that deck, but it's also very good in Labyrinth and also potentially Ubel. So you could look into Dark World Puppetry against either Fire King or Despia, because again, it is a quickly spell card, which is the reason why, even though it only banishes 3 cards, I would consider it a little better than Soul Release. And also the graveyard effect of this card is really good. Cosmic Cyclone is quite clearly a card that you gotta play, because Runic Stun is gonna keep seeing play. Floodgates are still there, even though there is way less Floodgates now because Summon Limit is banned. Anti-Spell is at 1, Scale Drain is at 1, Goes in the Magic Rivalry, there can only be 1. I remember when all those cards were 3, it was an absolute nightmare to play this game. Now at least we're having less annoying purple cards, but Cosmic Cyclone is still a card that you gotta play because it covers so much ground. It's even good against Fire King. Regeki is a good side option. I think it's like a little worse than Change of Heart depending on your deck, but if you're playing Tenpai Dragon, then Regeki and Dark Hole, if you can keep playing like tons of them, it's gonna be good. Yeah, this card at least also is like a real board breaker. It's not like Dark Ruler, which just negates everything, but if you break and you have Dark Ruler, you're still gonna die. Whereas if you break and you have like a bunch of Regekis, at least like you're simplifying the game state and you might survive and make it to next turn, which is relevant in Tenpai Dragon. Swords of Concealing Light. No, yeah, that's way worse than Book of Eclipse. Even though the effect is not like technically bad, it's a card that I definitely do not recommend. Book of Moon, I think, is also very similar to Spellbound. It's a card that could be good in the future, but the thing is, it only covers 1 monster, so I think the card is a little too fair. That's my issue. I think I might as well knock out Book of Eclipse here. It's a great side option. It's definitely better than Book of Moon. This card going first and second can be good, and one thing that I really like about Book of Eclipse is if you get hit by Dark Ruler, for example, you can use some of your monster negations while they're negated, and then you chain Book of Eclipse so they go face down, and Dark Ruler doesn't affect them anymore because obviously a monster that is face down cannot be negated. Lightning Storm, that's definitely a really good one. I mean, it's similar to like Regeki Duster, etc., those kinds of cards. Evenly matched, yet again, very similar. This card is very good if you want to commit to board breakers, then it's even better. But if you're playing like hand shops and a couple of board breakers, I don't think Evenly is the best one for you. Duster, yeah, I think that's a must play because it's just that sacky bullshit one of. No, it's a great card, obviously. It has like no real drawback. Like you can side it in even going first against a bunch of decks. There's nothing negative I can say about Duster. Whereas Lightning Storm, you can't really side it in going first because you make a board, you're gonna have face-up cards on your field, and then turn 3 you can't use it. Duster, not the same thing. Okay, spell card, Soul Exchange. This card is obviously very good in the Flunderies deck. And you could also even main deck this card, but then you have so many bricks. Forbidden Chalice, I do not think that this is its format. When Forbidden Chalice was seeing play, like last format, I guess like the main cool play was when you were making Princess and then using its effect, revive back, and then you were chalicing your own Princess and then making an apple, but that's no longer something that you can do. So yeah, you might as well play Droplet instead of Chalice. And speaking of the devil, Forbidden Droplet is hands down one of the best board breakers in the format, if not the best board breaker. It's just that Cosmic Cyclone, I think, is going to be a staple that people are going to be playing even more because this card, every single deck should be playing this card. It's literally that good. Triple Tactic Talents is also a great side option just because it covers a lot of ground. It's good going first, good going second. It's good against a bunch of decks. My issue is that if people commit to board breakers instead of hand shops, then this card is going to be dead. If you side it in going first, it's just going to be one more useless card. And also, if you get hit by Shifter or Molchami Porolia on draw phase, this card is not live, unlike Triple Tactic Thrust. But still, this card's impact is really high. And again, going second, it's a great card. And also, just like Change of Heart, it's a monster stealing card and also doesn't target. Mind Control, obviously worse than Change of Heart, but still pretty solid. Blink Out, no, don't play that card. Snatch Steal, it's way worse than Change of Heart, I want to say. But it's still not too bad. It can get stopped though, so I'm probably gonna put it maybe like there, between Regeki and Duster, although the positioning doesn't really matter that much. Kashtira Fenrir, pretty good when I think about it. But the thing is, even though it outs like Floodgates, it can't out Floodgates under Synchro Zone because you can't attack, and the Runic deck will never use monster effects. And also, it's just another card that makes you lose even harder to Dark Ruler because you're still putting all of your eggs into one basket. Like, you're putting all of your threats in the monster zone. It doesn't really change that much, but again, it's a great option when you get shifted. You still end on a threat, but it plays even harder into Molchami Porolia, so again, there's pros and cons to everything. Nonetheless, this card is very similar to Talents. It's good going first, good going second, and it's generically just a good Yu-Gi-Oh card. Triple Tactic Thrust is such an interesting one because it belongs again to the same family of cards like Change of Heart, Mind Control. Even better if you want to commit to board breakers because then, you know, you're not losing to Call by the Grave, Cross Out, Talents, etc. And also you have more cards that you can draw into as your 6th card, and Thrust can get a lot of things for you, and also it can be a nice way to deal with Shifter. I don't think it's a card that you necessarily have to play, but it's overall a very good card. Okay, this one is Dark Hole. It's worse than Regeki because we're not seeing a lot of Ibli Locks or Aido or Ross Disciple. You're just getting hit by Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. So yeah, it's probably gonna be like around here. I feel like Triple Tactic Thrust should be a little higher on the list. There we go. Yeah, it's honestly kind of good. Super Poly, it's not its format, but it will clearly be insane in the future. A couple of reasons why I say that. First of all, it's good against Malice because you can use World Chalice Guardian Dragon Almadork using 3 Link monsters. And again, that shuts down like pretty much everything that they have. And you are going to be able to summon the Duke of Demise using a bunch of Fiends and or zombie monsters in the future. Right now, there's pretty much no Super Poly target against Yubel because you can't fuse away their Phantom of Yubel with their other monsters to make the Loving Defender because Phantom of Yubel cannot be used as a fusion material. So Super Poly on paper looks broken, and the card is, like, the effect of the card is ridiculous, but it's just that the targets right now aren't good enough for what the boards that people are putting up. The Yubel deck, it makes a different board every single time. So sometimes Super Poly could be good, and sometimes it's just randomly unplayable for no good reason. Like, for example, you can't Super Poly away like DS Irae and Caesar, or like DS Irae and Unchained Soul of Rage, but you can Super Poly away like Varudras and Unchained Soul of Rage because both of them are dark, so that would work. Anyways, spell card Monster Reborn. This one, it's just not worth it. Herald of the Abyss. It's not really good, honestly, because Purely is no longer really seeing play, and I can't really think of like too many like boss monsters unaffected by card effects for the most part. So yeah, honestly, this was like the main reason why people were even playing that card, and it has like an inherent like loophole. Like you can kind of beat this card by summoning another monster with the same characteristics. Kurikara, this doesn't cover a lot of ground, but it's still a decent card overall. I think I'm probably gonna put it here because it's also that kind of card that just, it's a decent card when you read it. You know that it's gonna be good in the future, but maybe it could even be good in this format if a lot of people start playing some Kashtira cards. Santa Claus. It's a good side option, and you could also side it in any Fiendsmith based deck because it's like a searchable kaiju. Same thing with Kurikara. I mean, it's a searchable kaiju off of Snake Eye Ash, which is just a one-of though. Not like the best. If it could also be searched by Bonfire, it would be insane, but that is not the case, unfortunately. Dark Ruler, the card, I usually kind of consider it worse than Droplet, but sometimes it's better than Droplet. It's just that we still have the Gimmick Puppet Nightmare Lock. So for me, at least, Droplet solves an issue, whereas Dark Ruler doesn't. But Dark Ruler is free, whereas Droplet is very expensive. You gotta pitch a lot of cards from your hand or field to the graveyard. Sometimes it's a good thing because you can dodge like Imperm and stuff like that, but sometimes it's really bad because your hand already has a lot of taxes or bricks, and you're not really trying to send a lot of, I mean, sometimes it's fine sending them, but sometimes it's not because it's combo pieces that you have to use, like summon from the hand and stuff like that, so it can be really annoying at times. But Dark Ruler, it's also not once per turn, so if you go Dark Ruler on a U-Bell board, and then they chain like something, and then they also chain DS Ire, you can Dark Ruler again, and then they lose. Alright, Gamma Seal now, or just Kaijus in general, really. I mean, that's, I want to consider them worse than Santa Claus, because Santa Claus is searchable, and Kurikara is also searchable. So Kaijus, I think, are just overall not super worth it. Clashing Souls is a card that might be good in the future, but it's a little too situational. You gotta pay too many life points to use this card, and usually your opponents are not gonna pay life points to full combo either. But nobody's really ever gonna play around Clashing Souls because it's also a damage step card, so you can't really predict it. Like you can even like play comedy and like pretend like you bricked or something. But the surprise factor with this card could be massive. I will make a full video just on this card soon enough, so stay tuned. Zoo King Alpha. This card is ass. It's way worse than Pankratops. And even Pankratops is not worth it, even though it's not a bad card. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll even upgrade it. It trades 1 for 2. But the thing is, people make like 10 interruptions with 1 card, so it's like, do you really still only want to trade 1 for 2 when you could trade like 1 for 5? Yeah, it looks broken on paper. It's good against fair decks, but it's really bad against unfair decks. Like against U-Bell, not good enough. Okay, Enemy Controller. This is also a solid one, but I think it's better against Snake Eyes than it is against U-Bell, just because, I mean, the DS Ire again cannot be targeted, and they have so many Omni Negates, but it's overall a very good card. I don't really have any complaints with this card, so yeah, it's nice, honestly. If anything, it should probably be here. The Sky Striker Engine, I've never really thought about this for this format, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really put in that much thought into it. I think Sky Striker cards are just good cards overall. I mean, Widow Anchor, Bricks Boards, Shark Cannon steals the Princess or the Fire King cards, or I mean, will steal or banish. So yeah, I mean, it's a decent engine, but yeah, it all depends on your deck. Okay, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, garbage. Archfiend Eccentric, same league as Santa Claus because it's searchable, but at least this card gets rid of spells and traps, this card gets rid of monsters. Usually spells and traps are a little more problematic and sticky and annoying to out than like unaffected by card effect monsters. Especially if you play U-Bell, you don't care if your opponent has like towers with 5k attack. You just go U-Bell, attack, and then reflect the damage and you're dead. Alright, now we got Metal Chonius. This card is pretty nasty. There are a lot of really cool things that you can do with it. I'm not gonna spoil everything, but this card is especially good in mirror matches in tier 0 format. So in the U-Bell mirror match, you can do a lot of nice things. You can negate the Caesar and then summon a bunch of interesting cards, And you can also do the same thing with IP, summon your own IP, or negate SP, summon your own SP, and stuff like that. The world is your oyster with this card. There's so many possibilities. It's kind of like a small world and a Forbidden Chalice and a card that special summons from the deck like combined at the same time. It's such a cool card. Vesper Gearsu. Yeah, this one's just so weird, so difficult to analyze. It's clearly a card that's gonna be good in the future, for sure. It just, man, it could even be good right now. That's the thing. It's just that, again, the U-Bell deck makes too many Omni Negates, so you need cards that can't be negated. That's the reason why these 3 cards, which for the most part can't really be responded to, are so good. This you can't respond to with the monster that you're trying to target. So at least if I target the Varudras, then you can't negate it with Varudras. So I can summon my own Varudras, and then negate yours, and then I got a 3k body on the field, and I negated your monster. So you understand, like that's one of the reasons why these cards are good. Whereas Vesper Gearsu, it doesn't matter how powerful the effect is, if it can just be stopped by DS Ire or what's-his-face Varudras, then perhaps it's just not good enough. So it's just a card that I think when Omni Negates will start dying off in Yu-Gi-Oh, this card will eventually be really good. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, I think. I don't know if I missed anything. You guys let me know in the comment section below. Board Breakers versus Hand Traps, I'll also be comparing them very soon, so stay tuned. I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.